podcast where callers share part-time problems and full-time fuck-ups. From major war stories in the workplace to minor break room blunders and everything in between.
Oh, and did we mention it's all completely anonymous?
Yep, so ignore those NDAs and air out your dirty business casual laundry.
This is Fail Disclosure.
All right, Clint, here we go. Show number one.
Show number one. What do you think what do you think our world will have in front of us?
I don't know, and I'm a little bit nervous because nobody's called in yet, so maybe nothing, maybe crickets.
Yeah, maybe this podcast is actually a fail.
Yeah, that would be good. So episode 1, how we failed. Oh, wait, hold up. How does this thing work?
First caller. Let's do it.
Here we go. This is Paul Jarrett, and with me I have
Clint Runge.
And we are both founders of businesses, and we've often had some good conversations about all the things that we've seen messed up or...
You and I might have talked more about our failures than our successes.
Definitely. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to put together a podcast and see what other juicy stories are out there.
Well, we hope it's not just you and I that have failed all these years. We hope that there's others out there. So we've opened up the line to the world. Let's hear about these fails. By the way, everything on the show today is anonymous. We don't know any of the callers. We don't know their particular situations. We're hearing it as it comes in.
Should be fun. Let's give it a try.
All right, first caller.
You are on Failed Disclosure with Paul and Clint. What's going on?
Hi. So I kind of have, it's like a whole job that was a fail.
Oh,
so
dig in. Let's hear it.
So I'm in like marketing and social media, advertising, branding for companies. And I was hired on internally for a firearms store. I don't really want to say location.
No, don't.
No, go on.
I created
firearms as in guns, like a gun store.
Yes.
Oh,
guns,
okay.
Ammo.
No.
How do you feel about that?
Amount.
Did you know? Is that what you signed up for, or is this presented to you after you had the job?
So it is what I signed up for. I mean, I love doing like branding and marketing for all different brands. So if it's a different industry, I more or less just see it as a challenge. So anyway, I worked for this company for 9 months, and I took them from 600 to 6,000 all organically, just on Facebook alone. Yeah, and so it was really amazing, and I was creating all of this branding and marketing and strategy around the main manager, gunsmith, the main guy there.
Sure, the craftsman probably of the guns.
Yeah, and then about 7 months in, a local news story reported that he was a white supremacist Nazi.
Oh, shit. There's too many. What's up with all the fucking Nazis lately?
Oh, my gosh.
Can we just get over it?
And like, he was on an FBI watch list, like a super dangerous dude that I had created this.
So you were creating Nazi propaganda.
So I accidentally created like a huge platform for this crazy, insane, racist person. So obviously I quit and left right away.
But you had created this wonderful story about him and this incredible brand and how amazing this human being is, and it turns out he sucks.
I just thought about like there had to be somebody like that for Hitler. Like,
they're like, I didn't know I was creating this brand. Are you kidding me?
I've made a huge mistake.
Oh, so when you found out, tell me about the moment you found out. What was that like?
So I actually didn't hear about it till like the next day. So they released the story in the evening. And the next day, we had all these people like giving us negative reviews and like writing all this.
And you're like, what did I do?
Like, writing all this awful shit. Like,
what was like the worst stuff?
Nazis. And
yeah, what was like the worst thing that somebody wrote?
Well, people like came out and like were spray painting our signs with like
shit.
Yeah, it got pretty crazy and intense.
So you were probably a little bit worried for your physical safety.
Oh, yeah. So I ended up like leaving there very soon after. But I like took him off of every single thing. And I was like, why did you not tell me that you have these like affiliations? And they're not like joking affiliations. They're like, he was published. He was on like NPR. He wrote a book, like he like led a commune in West Virginia.
Oh.
Now, did you feel, you could be honest because this is an anonymous call, did you feel personally responsible that somehow you had missed all of these things that were out there when crafting this guy's story?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Like I literally had no idea. And especially because we would have like people of all races come and shop there and like go out to the gun range and do all this fun stuff. And like, he was totally fine. Like you would have never known. And like the craziest thing is after I left, they like reactivated all their socials and they're still putting him out there on that stuff. And I guess they just figure like people will forget. But yeah.
So, you don't forget white supremacy. That's like the worst thing. Like, no one ever forgets that. Okay.
Yeah, like, that's hard to do.
It's terrible.
So that whole job was basically one big fail.
I mean,
that's awesome.
At least he knows his target audience.
Yeah,
no?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you want to build that brand. Yeah.
No, definitely don't.
Yeah. Yeah. In no way, shape, or form do we endorse that. That's
no, and
crazy.
You know, it's like there's really terrible stuff, right? Like we're actually talking about really, really terrible stuff that impacts a lot of people. I'm actually thinking of our caller as well, though, who had a whole year of her portfolio basically put on hold.
I was going to say, what do you put in your portfolio?
Yeah,
now?
And it's like, well, that's not going to make the reel.
I try not to even like put that in because I mean you don't really want to go back and like reference that company who has like a Nazi going to it, but like also the success that like I brought them from the work I did. So it is kind of like something more like talking point in an interview, maybe. Right.
Well, how has this made you? Are you still doing branding and
are you still working for Nazis?
Yeah. So I have a job at an agency now, and so I still work with like a bunch of different companies. But I'm just not working like internally at a company now. So I work under an agency now. So
okay, I see. So you work at an agency now, and at that time you worked for the firearms store. Okay, so do you feel like now when you are doing your brand work, do you feel like it's made you a better researcher?
Oh, 100%. Like I do like the Facebook creep, the LinkedIn creep, the Instagram creep.
Yeah.
That creep, I Google them and I make sure like that if we're going to be putting them out there as a face of a brand, that they're not doing some crazy shit on the low, you know? So
I'm like going back in my head now, trying to think of all the crazy stuff that I've posted. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you've got secrets, right? I mean, I feel like opening your closet would be really scary.
But
here's
the
thing.
There's like a whole mass of skeletons in my closet, I'm sure.
This is the danger in any brand building it around one person, right?
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
That everybody has skeletons. This is a way worse one, let's be honest. But to some degree, there's something in everyone's history and skeletons in their closet that it can totally take down entire business. In fact, it has taken down entire businesses.
Yep. The thing that probably gives me a little bit of stress is if things are taken out of context, right? Like it's really easy, you know, I mean, imagine, I think of like trying to explain to my kids some of the political posts that I have. And if they don't have context, right? I'm like, but you know, I also feel a little bit like everything is so flooded that like I always think like nobody gives a shit about your shitty little life, right? Like there's two ways of looking at it. Like, no, nobody gives a shit about your shitty little life, or hey, nobody gives a shit about my shitty little life. Might as well go for it.
It depends how far you want to put yourself out there, because if you become too public and too big, I mean, people will try to take you down.
So what is the tactic or ad or something that you did when you were there that is like the thing that you're the most proud of, and now you look back on and you're like, ooh, probably shouldn't have did that? Like, was he like, hey, throw a few K's on that gun, or hey, see this little swastika, like sneak that in there? Like, is there something where you're like, oh God, I should have caught it at that time?
No, but like because I did stay like a couple weeks because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, like for me. And I did then notice like simple signs going forward, and I saw he had a wooden necklace, like a wooden bead necklace, and it had little swastikas on it, and I saw it like peek out of his shirt, and I was like, what? And like there were straight up pictures of him like shaking hands with David Duke, and like,
oh my God,
he's a bad
just like,
guy.
how did I miss that?
Yeah, how did I not see this? Clues, right?
I thought those were like puka shells. God damn it.
Yeah, well, they're Nazi bees.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's what the swastika on
But
your
you know what?
forehead
This kind of
was.
makes me think about how many people right now are in situations where they're working for people that they know are shady or have their own skeletons. They're aware of it, but are afraid to leave because of, you need a job in this world.
Yeah. And
that's a tension that's pretty tough to dig into.
I was thinking about that when you were like, I decided not to work there anymore. I was like, well, do you quit that day or do you wait? Like, how did you get out of that situation? And what did you tell them when you left?
Well, so a lot of people, I think there's only 20 employees there, and 8 of them quit as soon as that story broke. And I was the only person in charge of social media, marketing, anything that goes out on behalf of that company. And so I kind of had to be the fireman in that, and just try to be like, oh my God, what do we do now? And it was super hard, and then internally I was so conflicted about it. So I tried to still set them up for goodness and tell them hey, you can't be on this, you probably shouldn't work here. And the owner of the company decided not to let him go and to keep him, and so that's why everyone else quit. And then I did my due diligence for this next 2 weeks, and then I was like, I can't be morally a part of this if you're not going to let this person go.
So if it helps you at all, I was working in New York City, and I was working in the ad agency world, and I was offered a job. It was in the tobacco industry, and I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of money. It was triple the pay, and my wife and I were broke. I think we had $700 on a credit card. We're in New York. We literally had nothing, and here is this job that was triple what I should be making. So I come home and I'm like, I'm going to take it. And my wife's like, no, who are you? No. And they literally, the ad agency, it was a big ad agency. And they explained to me once I got down the interview process of well, we're going to say that you work on a dog food brand. We're going to say that you do this. So they literally,
they understood it.
Yeah. They had a way to manipulate it. So even their company didn't come out and say that they work for Big Tobacco. I turned it down. And I go to work at this other agency, and they're like, you're going to be working for a consulting firm. And I was like, okay, that sounds boring and awful, whatever. So I start working for this consulting firm, and it's a really big one. It's one of the biggest ones in the world. And I can totally relate to what you're saying, because I was creating these ads, I was helping out. And I remembered at a certain point, there was government stuff. There was a lot of planes and ships, and what I was writing and helping with, I didn't really understand it. And I would get yelled at on some of the phone calls, and I'm like, I really need to understand what I'm building here. Well, it turns out that they were selling military software for missiles to countries that were at war. So, you might have worked for a Nazi person, but I was literally selling missile software to companies. So, and I again, after, a while, I was like, luckily the campaign quit right about the time that I started to figure it out, but it's tough. I mean, it's Well,
it's interesting to me that advertising is often caught in this moral conflict. I feel like that's one of these industries that's always caught into these situations.
Was it you that we had a conversation about being a mercenary? You're kind of like a mercenary for hire.
Yeah.
And I remember when we started our current company, we were working in vitamins and supplements, and I had a friend that just blasted me for selling snake oil and all this other shit. And I was like, hey man, what do you do? And he's like, well, I work at this ad agency. And well, what do you do? Well, I work for Taco Bell, and I do ads for kids. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me you're literally pushing fast food on kids, which is arguably way more unhealthy than hey kid, take a vitamin D pill, right? And it's just fascinating to me how, socially we can kind of denial is a hell of a drug, right? And you really got to peel back what you're doing and make sure you're okay with it.
So to wrap up with our caller here, last question for you. Do you now feel like that experience has helped you set some moral standards in the world? And even on the issue of gun controls, has that experience now given you some barometer of how to navigate this world?
Yeah, well, like, especially like for sensitive topics like that, you have to really know morally who you're representing and like what your morals and values are and where you stand, so you don't kind of get caught misrepresenting yourself as long as while you're representing that brand, because what you do for them also represents you.
That's great advice for everybody. Thanks so much for your call today.
Don't be a Nazi. Thank you very much for your call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So Clint, call number 1.
Hey.
What are your thoughts coming out? Shit. We gotta
do this.
All right, let's do it. Hey, you are on Fail Disclosure with Paul and Clint.
Let's hear it.
What did you fuck up at work?
Hey, Paul and Clint, how you doing?
Fantastic. We just had our first call, and so you are call number 2.
I'm call number 2. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the concept. I appreciate what you guys are doing. So I don't. One of the things that I watched your video where you're talking about personal failures, and it was physically, emotionally, you said you were almost sick. And so some of these, they're not necessarily failures that we've made as a business, but it's been things that we've had to navigate, the challenges we've had to navigate. So I do rental properties here in Lincoln.
Oh my.
Yeah, and I would say
I grew up in a trailer park, so I got a few stories about that. But yeah, lay it on us.
So the fail, I suppose, would be purchasing the right property, or having to navigate purchasing a bad property. So,
do you have one in mind that you've purchased that you now know is the wrong property?
Yeah, I do. So it was.
It's like I got 20.
It was a 7-plex.
Yeah, one.
So
let's hear it.
There's a 6-unit apartment complex and then a house attached to it. And when we purchased this, we did a walkthrough, so everything looked okay. But there was one that we knew was a hoarder. So there's a tenant in there that's a hoarder.
Always.
And then there's
in trailer parks.
Hoarders love to rent.
Mobile home parks. Yes. If you're from, we call it mobile home parks.
Are you a hoarder?
No, I'm the opposite.
Okay.
I'm the opposite.
All right, back to our story. Keep going.
Yeah. So the house that was attached to it is pretty run down. So we have this idea that we're going to buy distressed properties and fix them up, right? Well, apparently one of the tenants in our basement unit got into a fight with the tenant in the home and broke out one of the windows to the back door. So we had to go in. We had to get rid of all the tenants in both of those units. And when we were cleaning it up, we found all sorts of nasty stuff, rotten food. It looked like there was some poop smeared on the walls on one of the bedrooms.
Just some poop on the wall.
Yeah, rotten food and poop. I mean, that goes together pretty well.
Yep. Always a little poop.
So that one didn't necessarily turn out to be the best property. So that's the biggest failure that we've made. Yeah.
What else? Because I've had to clean way more apartments and trailers and homes after folks are evicted. You just open up this whole part of my brain that I think I've tried to put into the past. We always found drugs, but we always knew when we walked into a place, if there was a fist hole in the wall, it was going to be trouble.
That's a good point.
Did you find any drugs?
We have, yeah.
If you did, are you willing to share, or did you give them over to the authorities?
Well, I suppose we didn't find actual drugs. We found needles.
The paraphernalia. Yeah. Garbage.
That's when it gets a little intense, right? Because then you're like walking around the place going damn, I don't want to get stuck.
Can we ask this question? So let's say you did walk in and let's say you're cleaning it all up and you found a really great bag of whatever. Do you keep it? What do you do with that?
No. You turn it over.
You wouldn't?
I'd call the cops.
You turn that over? Okay.
Yes.
What would be the amount, big or small, before you'd go, this one might just be mine? Is there a line there?
I think maybe you can just throw some stuff away or flush it down the toilet, but I would never keep it for myself. No.
Okay.
I know the answer
Paul?
to this question. I have kept it for myself.
Yes, I knew you'd be that guy.
I'm not going to say leftover product for yourself?
Yes.
Even after going
correct.
in there and finding poop on the walls, you still kept that product?
So this, yeah. I mean, there was no poop on it. I had Clorox wipes. I'm good, right? No, this is, we've had two scenarios, and I'm not going to name the company that I was at the time. But one was, somebody was working, and it was in a large facility with a lot of folks, and somebody had a little oopsie and dropped a bag of, I'm going to guess cocaine, maybe baking powder or whatever. There's not much you say to that except for, you need to pack it up and go home. But it was a very obvious, like, whoops, I dropped my stuff. And it was like, you just pick it up and keep going. But the other one was the facility has a lot of people coming and going through it, which might not necessarily work at the company that I was at the time. But we just found straight up a bag of weed on the ground. And that was weird to address it with the company. I was more of the...
You kept it.
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny it.
You kept it.
Yeah. Office weed is good shit. Yeah. But we did have to say, actually what we did was we put it in a box and said, we're going to leave it here for 14 days. You can claim
Nobody
it, no questions asked. Yeah. We don't care. It's legal in Colorado. You're fine. Nobody claimed it. So they probably thought it was a trap.
Now, for a caller who owns all these rental properties, I'm curious. I actually have a lot of questions for you, but let's start with this. Has there been you said that the fail is buying the wrong properties. Is there, right. What is your clue now into deciding if this is a bad property or a good property? What's kind of your navigation?
Poop on the wall.
Yeah.
Poop on the wall.
Yeah, poop on the wall. That's right. No, we figured out people buy properties for a lot of different reasons, or they have their different metrics and how they analyze and whether this is a good unit or not a good unit. We've decided to place a really high premium on the quality of the tenant. So even if it's a property that may not cash flow as much as what we had thought, dealing with this fail. So this was the fail that taught us that we don't want to have to wrangle tenants all the time. And the cost to go in and clean this place up and get it back to where it should be and get a good quality tenant in there was pretty extensive. And I think we spent $20,000 trying to fix this place back up and get it going. So.
Oof.
Can I ask you, so now how do you decide what's a good tenant and who is not? Like what's sort of going on in that interview process?
Well,
do you like poop on the walls?
Yeah, do you like poop on the walls?
I'm just going to keep going back to poop.
You can't necessarily interview the tenants. You're saying when I buy one or when I'm...
Or, yeah, either way. Like, if one of your metrics is quality tenants, how do you decide what is quality? And I'm personally curious.
Yeah, tenants who pay on time. And then we do talk to the property manager if we're going to buy one and say, gosh, how many times have they called? How many times have they been late? In our experience, probably 90% of the issues come from 10% of those callers or those tenants. Probably like you guys in business, if you have your clients, probably 90% of those problems come from 10% of those clients. So we try to figure out, hey, are there any that were calling you every day? What were they calling you about? Were they proactive in trying to figure out whether the toilet was clogged because of them or whether it was a sewer issue? Did they call you to come unclog the toilet? We've had somebody call us to come unclog the toilet. That's your
fault. Have them call Paul. He's good at that.
Yeah, I can.
We just learned that from our previous call, Paul.
I'd rather change tires, but I can wipe the poop off the walls.
Yeah.
So if out of whether it's you or I hear a lot of you're using the word we.
Yeah.
What in your industry, even if it isn't you, or if it's a story that you've heard, what's the wildest thing that you've ever heard?
Gosh, I've got a landlord friend that has quite a few of them that are way more crazy than anything I've ever experienced. But
lay it out there. What's the one that you're just like, no fucking way, no way?
Oh, they had somebody just completely tear down all the walls. So they were evicted, and instead of leaving as they should, they wrote on all the walls, tore down all the walls, and left all their stuff in there. So it was just a complete nightmare. They had to put up all new drywall.
I gotta share this one. My parents had a property and they decided for the better part of, I think, 3 years to put all of their garbage into the garage. I was 14 or 15 years old. My parents bring me out there with my best friend. You know, I think I was getting paid $2 and they're like, clean this out. And I was like, I finally just had enough guts to tell my dad, no way. So what he did was he's like, I'll double your pay. And then he drops this one on me. You can just drive the truck to the dump. And I was like, oh, I'm in. So I'm 14 years old driving back and forth to the dump. And I'm telling you, this smell, I mean, it was just on the truck permanently. I had latex gloves. I had everything you can imagine. It was on me for like 2 weeks. I'd go to school. People are like,
I don't know if it ever left you.
It was, and I remember that my buddy turned around and he puked his guts out. We got towards the back and we went to grab trash bags and we grabbed one. And I kid you not, it ripped open because it disintegrated over time. A diaper fell out. And there was more poop, right? And just roaches came out of everywhere. Yeah. We finished the job and my dad said, well, now you know what you don't want to do when you grow up. So make sure and get your degree and figure out what you want to do. And it's like haunting to me that I'm like, I'm not.
It's made you the man that you are today.
It's literally why I still rent today. Like, I'm just like, I can't manage my own stuff.
So would you, just before we wrap up, would you recommend rental property then? Like, you're in the game. Is this something where now that you're in it, you're like, oh, don't do this? Or you're like, actually, if you can learn to navigate it, not so bad?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great industry to be involved in. But you've
got
to figure out.
Up until a week and a half ago.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that happens. We'll see how that changes things. But you've got to figure out if you're just you either got to have 1 or 2 properties or you got to have 100. So right. There's a point in there where it's not worth it, where you're spending all your weekends and your evenings and you're still working full time and doing that sort of thing, that it's not worth it. So you either got to go all in or you don't do it.
It's a tough side hustle, probably.
What is your one piece of advice that you could share with property owners out there?
One piece of advice to share with property owners.
Yeah.
I think prioritize quality tenants. That would be the number one thing for me.
Yeah, and by the way,
how to wipe poop off the wall.
Yeah, priority tenants, but also like you can apply that to priority like employees and locations.
Just like, fire the bottom 10%.
I think you're absolutely right on when you say the 90% of your problems come from 10% of the sources. So I think that applies to just about any business.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for your call today. We really appreciate your time on Failed Disclosure.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Good luck to you.
Thanks, guys. Yep. Bye.
Bye. Well, this is Clinton Paul with Failed Disclosure.
So check us out. I know we have a Facebook page, Failed Disclosure, Twitter @Failed Disclosure, and I'm sure we have a bunch of other things out there. So do the whole I know it's important to get ratings on a podcast, so do that stuff too. That's all going to help out and help us produce this and do some more in the future. Buy my merch. Is that what the kids say?